Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. Today is Friday, December the 1st, 2017, and we have been experiencing technical difficulties this morning. If you tuned in and you heard only me, we just noticed that, and we figured it out. But I think we got Tom hooked in now. So Tom Wells, my co-host, my new co-host for Fridays and Mondays, is joining us. And let's try again, Tom. Say hello.
Hello, Walt, and hello, everyone. It's so good to be here. It's so good to be able to share some wonderful insights and interesting topics with you today.
It's good to be heard, too, to actually heard. So let's try again.
Yeah.
Kind of starting from the beginning. Yeah, right. So let's try from the beginning. So tell people a little bit about your background, who you are, and let's get the thing going that way.
Okay, I'm a life coach. I live in Boulder, Colorado. I've been coaching different coaching methods for about the last 7 years. And most recently, in the last 4 years, I've been a law of attraction coach. Have found the law of attraction to be the most revolutionary, wonderful way that have changed my life. And enjoying working with clients every month, 8 or 10 clients I allow to work with, and largely focus on how they can transform their lives from generally a place of angst to a place of more ease, from a place of lack to more abundance, from a place of feeling alone to having a more rich life with people, and just generally things that make our lives more wonderful.
Sounds like a good life, actually.
I'm in a good life.
Yeah, that's good. That's half the battle right there. So you came up with an interesting topic for today. Why don't you tell people what the topic is, and let's see if we can, get this thing going.
Yeah. Well, I consider this topic to be sort of underlying just about every other topic, as it is with law of attraction. Everything kind of dovetails. But it's basically, how can we have more abundance in our life, and how can we move beyond a sense of lack or limitation of not having enough?
So, activating the energy of abundance. That's the title, and it's a good title because it's something that can be challenging for anyone who's brought up in this culture of so much negativity that we're presented with from virtually day one by our society, our family, our school, our workplace. I mean, it's just, we're inundated by this stuff. So learning how to activate the positive energy is really important.
Yeah, it's really an abundant universe that we live in. And I think that we weren't really taught to believe that. And in a lot of ways, a lot of us still don't believe that. I know I'm working on it every day to allow myself to be self-empowered into the amount of abundance that's actually available to me to have a beautiful life.
Now, we were trying to talk before, when the show wasn't really working well, we were trying to talk about strategies, how we get there. And you were telling an interesting story about a journal that was a little bit different, because what'd you call it, a rain journal?
A pray rain journal.
Pray rain,
as
okay.
opposed, it's sort of pray rain means as opposed to pray for rain. And then I told the story about that. Would you like me to tell the story again?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. The story goes that, this is the way I remember it, that there was a man in southern Arizona or somewhere, let's say, it's American Southwest Desert, who made friends with a Native American. One day, this Native American, said he was headed deep into the desert, and would his friend like to accompany him? And he said, sure, where are you going? And he says, well, I'm going to where our ancestors go to pray, and I'm going to go pray rain. And I said, all right, I'll come with you. And they went out into the desert and walked for many miles. Finally got to this beautiful place where this Native American was going to offer his prayers. And so the man went and he offered his prayers. And when he was done, he came back to where his friend was waiting for him. And the friend said, so did you pray for rain? And he says, no, I didn't pray for rain. And he said, I thought that's why you came out here. And he says, well, I came to pray rain, not for rain. And he says, the other guy says, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, I I pray rain, I see the rain. I see the rain in my village. I see the children jumping in the puddles of water. I see the water running off the rooftops. I walk out into the field where the corn is growing, and I see the corn coming alive with all of the beautiful water that's flowing onto the corn. And the difference was that he lives in the imagination of it as already done, rather than praying, say, to some power to say, please bring us the rain. We need the rain so bad. We're in drought. We're suffering. We need rain. Please help us. Instead of the beseeching type of prayer, this is a prayer where you live as if it's already a done deal, as if that rain has already fallen on that village, and believe so strongly that it will happen. And so this lady, Jeanette Ma, that I do coaching with, who has helped me a lot, as she's a very wonderful personal coach herself, she has written a book called A Pray Rain Journal. And I think it's How to Use a Pray Rain Journal or something like that. I don't know the exact title of the book. But so I do this every day that I can. I get out a small journal and I fill up one page writing about things as if they're already done. So if it's in the area of relationships, I talk about the wonderful relationship I already have and what it's like to enjoy that relationship. If it's about money, I write about the money as if I already have that money. So whatever the thing I want in my life, I don't write about I wish I had it or what. I write about what it's going to feel like when I already do have it. So that was what we were talking about.
Right, yeah. And it occurs to me that that's very, very similar to what we do as children, isn't it? Because when we're children, we imagine stuff and we play games like, the thing is really happening. So when I was a kid, it was like Cowboys and Indians. That's pretty much passé now. But it could be almost anything. Any game that you're doing imagining, you're really doing the Pray Rain game.
Yeah. It's a lot easier when we're kids. And, when parents start making their little child is telling parents that they have this friend that they talk to all the time, and that friend is an imaginary friend. Sometimes, in the past, parents would program that out of their kids. There's no little friend there. So, what are we talking about? I think these days maybe more parents are a lot more tolerant of the fact that letting their children have an imaginary friend is totally a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Our imaginations, I think we're more imaginal creatures than we are anything else. I think that's really powerful to us having the lives that we want, is to recognize that our imaginations have been incredibly underused. And if we want abundance in our life in any area, we've got to truly imagine that it's possible and live in that knowing, in that place of as if it's already happened.
And by the way, if you want to be a part of the conversation, we would welcome you to call in if you're listening live. Obviously, if you're listening to the recorded version, which probably most people will be, that's not going to work. But if you happen to be listening on Friday morning between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. Eastern Time, please call in. The phone number is 860-264-5432. We'd love to hear from you. But in the meantime, we're going to continue because, Tom, I can't say that I've ever really used journaling successfully in my own life. I've tried it a few times, but I couldn't get the high energy thing going. It was always more of a drudge than anything else. So I've used other methods. So it's interesting to hear that you've used it so successfully.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it right now because the more I read into the law of attraction and listen to different experts, you might say, on law of attraction, and then practice it in my own life and see what happens with my clients, I realize that everything comes down to this one thing of being able to get into the feeling of what we want before that thing arrived. Because it really isn't about having things in our life. It isn't really about just attaining the goal of a certain amount of money or a certain relationship that we want to have with a partner or, the new house we want to have. It's more about living our lives day by day, feeling fulfilled and feeling the abundance of what it means to be a human being. That's what it comes down to me. Because, like you were saying earlier, it's the journey that we're on that matters. It's the fact that we're enjoying ourselves moment to moment and having a fulfilling sense of our lives, a satisfying life that matters more than anything else. So we could be living with less money than we want, but if we're feeling good about what we do have and we're happy every day, we're finding things to celebrate about our lives, that's really half the battle, or that is the battle right there. That is what I live for, is how happy am I moment by moment by moment by moment.
Oh, sure. Yeah. In fact, that's kind of something that Wendy Dillard and I, my afternoon host, were doing yesterday afternoon. I had realized recently that I had not read all of the Abraham Hicks books. I've read 2 of them. I've read Ask and It Is Given, and I've read Money and the Law of Attraction. But there are like 4 or 5 others, not to mention the children's books, the Sarah books, that I hadn't even looked at. So I figured, well, it's probably about time. I'm probably a little bit overdue. So, I got online and started going through the process of ordering books and so forth. But I realized I didn't want to wait, You have to wait for it to come in the mail. I was impatient. I wanted to start now. So I logged on to my local public library. And my library is actually a pretty good one. It has lots of resources that I can get it online. But among other things, you can search the card catalog online. And so I searched the catalog for anything with Abraham Hicks and found that they had an anthology book. I think it was something like The Essential Law of Attraction or something like that. And it's actually 3 of the books in one. It's The Law of Attraction, Money in the Law of Attraction, and The Vortex, all in one book. So I said, well, there's 2 out of the 3 that I want to read. So I'll just check that out. And it's really cool because it's a digital checkout. So, you just check it out and it shows up in your browser and boom, you're reading the book. Okay, so I started reading the book and I got to one section where, now the Law of Attraction is a book where Jerry Hicks is interacting with Abraham and asking the questions and Abraham's giving the answers. And so you get a lot of that kind of dialogue going on. And at one point, Jerry said, what if I was somebody who was just trying to find joy in my life, just trying to find happiness in my life? And Abraham's answer was really interesting. The answer given was, first of all, we would congratulate you on focusing just on joy and happiness because it's the best thing you can focus on. And in fact, if you're focusing on just trying to achieve joy, just trying to be in a state of happiness, of harmony, of joy for as much of the time as possible, you're actually asking for the best thing, because no matter what your desires might be, no matter what you might have been asking for, that sort of thing, just by putting yourself into a state of joy, you are removing all of that resistance that is going to stop the stuff that you're asking for coming. So staying in that state of joy is the perfect thing. And that's really the key to the journaling you're talking about. It's actually the key to any kind of thing I know about. Doing affirmations, you have to be in a state of joy before you do them if you want them to really, have that impact. And that's the tricky part. The tricky part is if you go into any given, we'll call it a session, if you go into a session without feeling up, you're not getting the big benefit of it. But if you don't know how to get yourself to feel up, you got that kind of, double thing going on. Well, on the one hand, you're supposed to be up. On the other hand, you're not feeling up, so you don't get what you want from being up. It's like, it's like an endless negative vortex, so to speak. So I guess it's a long-winded way of saying if you're not feeling in the zone, and I suspect that doesn't happen too much to you anymore, but back earlier, I imagine it was a problem. I know it certainly was for me. How did you get yourself into the zone? How did you get yourself feeling good?
How to get myself into the zone? That's a constant. That's a constant thing that I'm always dealing with. I think for many months I would do a lot of listening to Abraham Hicks recordings, which you can listen to on YouTube all the time, and that just always got me in the zone. And working with the way that I think was the main thing, is just listening to my thoughts and asking myself, once I realized that I could choose a feeling thought, that was huge to start to understand. I always knew that. I always knew that what I'm thinking is totally affecting what's happening during my day. But this idea that I had unlimited possibilities and that every moment was brand new, that is such a huge understanding that the second a moment passes, gone forever. So there's nothing I need to regret or need to hang on to about what's happened, because every moment is brand new. So I could always say, well, what do I want going forward from this brand new moment? So even if I was feeling really bummed out a second ago, I could say, I don't want to stay here. I don't want to stay in this place of feeling bummed out. So what are my options? How could I choose a better feeling thought? And I would, choose a better feeling action. Get up out of my chair if I'm feeling depressed and go to the kitchen and fix something to eat. I mean, anything I do that gets me moving more in a direction that feels better to me is the beginning of the evolution towards a practice of feeling better and better and better. And there's lots of tools that I use with my clients, that I use with myself, that have helped me over the years.
I think
using an appreciation journal is really helpful.
I think that's really a key point, what you said, that it almost doesn't matter what you do as long as you do something either through action or through thought that starts the process. I also find that you kind of have to try different things. I tried a lot of things that I could get little tiny degrees of change, but slight improvements of mood and so forth. But many of them I couldn't get that quick shift, so to speak. It took me a long time trying a lot of different things, but I finally found one that works for me. Of the 5 senses, I think all of us have one sense that tends to be more dominant than the other. For myself, it's auditory. Sound is definitely my strongest sense. So once I thought about that and realized it consciously, I said, okay, so what can I do with sound? And tried a few things. One day I decided I was going to take my smartphone and I was going to create a playlist, a playlist of songs that I considered to be positive. Songs that I've liked over the years that have a nice, pleasant feel to them, pleasant lyrics, and all that kind of thing. So I made up a list. I've got about 30, 35 songs on the list. And then I play that playlist when I do my daily walks, because I try to do a daily walk every day out on a Rails to Trails path that goes right past the house. And I started doing that I started doing it within like the last 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. It's far and away the most effective thing I've ever done. And it's not even doing affirmations. It's not even reaching for a higher thought. It's just putting on headphones and listening to the music. But I do it for like 20 minutes, and all of a sudden, I'm just feeling almost giddy. So I think that's really the secret, trying to find the one thing that works best for you, and it's going to be different for every person.
Yeah, and I use anything and everything like that. I agree with you. I have music on a lot during the day, and the music is a wonderful way for me to, by like the Spotify, and on Spotify you can program very precisely the exact music you want to listen to, and then Spotify, of course, will add, new tunes constantly to those things that I'm saying that I like. And I have this huge bank now of thousands and thousands of songs, of tunes that I can play throughout the day, and it's sort of just like a constant reminder of the fact that everything's okay and everything's fine and I don't have anything I need to worry about. But I can do that by walking at the door and going on a walk, and as soon as I'm out in nature, I have this walk I do where I pass all these cottonwood trees, which are huge, beautiful trees that grow in Colorado everywhere, and I stop and I notice every single one of them on the trail, and I come back from that walk and I'm feeling fantastic.
Yeah, that's something my wife used to recommend to me, because like I said, I do the walks, and I never really did an appreciation of nature early on when I was doing them. So she was, basically saying what you said, appreciate the nature. And she even went to the extent of saying, find some flowers that look really pretty to you and go up and study the flowers, study the inside, study the pistils and so forth inside the flowers, and notice how the color is laid out and the striations and all that kind of thing. Really look at the detail of it. I remember the first time I tried it, I felt like a complete idiot. I was just kind of imagining, is anybody looking? I don't really want anybody to see this. But it does work.
What other things do you do that get you into that place of joy, that place of alignment?
Well, the music is the biggest one. That's the one that's been far and away the most powerful and the quickest for me. If I need to get there quickly, I put on the music, and within about 10, 15 minutes, I'm really feeling good. But other things that I do, I like to either read or listen to Abraham Hicks. There's one YouTube video I found of Esther Hicks while she's channeling Abraham. It's like 10 minutes long, and it's like 10 straight minutes of positive affirmations. I thought, wow, this is good. I like this. So, I'll play that every morning, and you hear 10 minutes of that, and that starts to feel pretty good. Now, it doesn't quite work as much as the music does, but hey, it works, and that's the main thing. So,
how about meditation? Do you do that?
Some, yeah. I mean, I can't say meditation's been really successful in terms of getting me to a higher level, but it does help me to remove the resistances. So, I mean, in a sense, I'm doing the same thing, but I don't really feel that boost that I get from the music. It's just more along the lines of I can release the junk that's hanging around in my body, so to speak.
Yeah, I find meditation to be fundamental to every day. I make sure that I start with meditation because I just feel like because I've been meditating since 1972 every day, sometimes for an hour and a half, and I don't do it that much anymore. But it's been really wonderful to have that as a homing device. That when I just follow my breath or practice various meditation techniques, I get to a place where there's a stillness and there's just feeling inside my body of the fact that everything's okay, and that from here I can go forward. It's like a foundation, like pushing a reset button. Mm-hmm. So that's something I really recommend for my clients, is that they have a meditation practice that they do every day for at least 15 minutes. If you can.
Yeah, that's a good one. Another thing that my wife and I like to do, especially at the end of the day, is to do what we call the 3 gratitudes, where we try to identify 3 good things that we did or that happened to us or that happened around us, basically to refocus our minds on good stuff that happened, because we find that if we don't do that, we tend to think about just the bad stuff that happened. So, part of the process of refocusing the mind onto good things and changing that programming that we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things we were talking about earlier is using our imagination to begin to imagine things that we've never imagined before. Like I really recommend that clients, and I do this myself, sit down or lay down every day for 5 or 10 minutes and imagine the things that we might like to have in our lives as if they're already there. And what does it feel like when we have that amount of money in the bank, or when we have that car, or when we have that new friend that we want, or that new life partner that we want? What are some of the feelings that we're expecting that's going to bring us? And get into those images and those feelings, get into those now while we're sitting in the chair or laying on the couch, and practice expanding our ability to imagine.
Yeah. That's one of the things that the 3 gratitudes does. The 3 gratitudes, when Louise and I are doing that, we, first we're stretching our minds. Okay, what happened good today? I got to think of something. Oh, yeah, there was X that happened. Well, I took my walk today, and it was beautiful weather. Okay, and there's like a double process that goes on there, because the person who's thinking about it, just by remembering that there was a good thing that happened, that kind of lifts your energy up, and it makes your attitude a little bit better. But it also affects the other person. The person who's hearing it also gets the benefit out of it. So if you each come up with 3, it's almost like you did 6 individually, because you got yours and you got theirs. That's the beauty of
doing it with another person. I really like that idea.
Oh, yeah. It's a great way to make sure you do it every day, too. I mean, if you're a kind of person like I was early on who would, just kind of let the whole habit building thing slack, that's a great way to make sure you're building the habit, because now you're committed to somebody else that you're going to do it. And if you don't do it, then you've basically broken your promise to them,
And I wonder, Abraham talks about you can completely change your life by doing it at night, and then in the morning when you wake up, first thing, they say, see if you can remember those three things in the morning. Have you ever done that?
I've done that sometimes. That 10-minute thing that I told you about, that's actually a morning routine. It starts off the night before, and then you do the rest of it in the morning. And
okay.
It starts off at night saying, when you go to sleep at night, imagine that you're putting the law of attraction to rest. Because when you sleep, the law of attraction, you aren't actually using it when you're asleep, when you're dreaming. You're, as the Rampage says, you're experiencing a law of attraction reprieve.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one.
And then when you wake up in the morning, you want to realize that because you had this law of attraction reprieve, it's as if you pushed the reset button. And now you can come into any vibrational level that you want to. So they recommend coming into a high but general place just by focusing on things like, oh, what a great night's sleep I had. I feel so good. This bed feels so comfortable. I'm so glad to be me. And then they just go on and on with all these positive affirmations. So that's the morning routine that particular tape, if you will, advocated.
Yeah. And I'm getting to the point where I can remind myself to do that throughout my day. Like let's say I'm driving somewhere, I've got 15 minutes of a drive. Often during that time, I'll sort of just gently start to talk to myself about all the things that I'm digging about my life. Like I'm really appreciating the trees along the side of the road, and I'm appreciating that it's a 60-degree day, and I'm appreciating the fact that my body feels really healthy, or I'm really appreciating the music that's on the radio. I'm really appreciating the fact that I'm going to hang out with 3 really good friends, and so I start listing in my mind all the things that I appreciate about my life at that particular moment. And I'm finding that that's something that is starting to show up when, say, I'm cooking dinner. And as I'm, fixing the food, I'm feeling how grateful I feel for the food, or what a great day it's been. It just start more and more of thinking of the things that are working well in my life. It's because Abraham says a lot. It's like it's by noticing what's working well that we create and attract more of the same abundance into our lives. And abundance is just something that grows on itself, just like your practice. Being in that place at night and being in that place again in the morning, there's no question that it's just going to start a momentum going of appreciation. And when I get to the place where I generally appreciate my life, there's hardly any reason not to appreciate my life. And then I notice more and more things just start flowing from my vortex, in my life. More and more of the good things that I want start showing up.
You touch on something here that is actually really important, because I think there are many, many people who, they do work for a living and their jobs are not exciting to them. There are a few who have great excitement in their jobs, and I say, more good stuff for you. But I'd say the majority of people, they do the job because they need the money, not because they're really loving it. They may have loved it at one time, but it's gotten mundane. They're kind of tired of it.
Right.
It's the same old, same old. So they're sitting in their office, or they're out in the car making the call, or they're, whatever it is that they're doing. And they're just stuck in this place of, okay, I'm doing the job, I'm doing the job, I'm doing the job. And what you're reminding us is, even when you're doing the job, unless you're doing something that requires intense concentration, during those lapses, if you will, those periods of time while you're doing your work where it doesn't require intense concentration, you can use that time to focus on good stuff, just like you were doing when you were driving the car.
Yeah, and Abraham, talks about how if you're in a dead-end job, you really can't transition to a better job until you find something about that dead-end job that you can feel appreciation for. It's sort of like, one way I look at it, the universe doesn't put me in any situation, or you could say I don't put myself in any situation in life without there being a reason. And if I'm still stuck in some relationship or some job or with a health condition or say I'm overweight, whatever condition that I'm struggling with in my life, that somehow I need to arrive at a place of loving or appreciating something about that. That it's not a mistake that I'm in that situation. And so what can I begin to love? What can I begin to appreciate about this situation that will then allow my vibration to raise, that will then enable me to transform into more the direction I would prefer to be going, So, say, if I'm overweight and every time I see my image in the mirror, I hate what I see, it's like, how will I ever get out of that vibration unless somehow I can find a way to love what I see in the mirror, right? And I might not love it and say I'm going to stay that way forever. I think we're afraid that when we love something that is unlovable, that we're going to stay stuck with it. If I love my partner who I'm so much no longer appreciating, then I'm going to stay stuck with her forever. And that's not true. I might start finding things that I really love about her, and I might have to dig to find those things, but I might start to appreciate her more and more, and eventually that relationship might transform. It might be that I really love being in that relationship eventually, or that relationship will end and I'll move on to a new one. But it's this whole question of abundance. It's like, and we get into a vibration of feeling better and better and better about our lives, because that's the vibration that's going to attract more and more and more of what we want in our lives.
Which is why it's so important to take some kind of action, to some kind of attempt to change. The only reason that we actually stay in something like that is because we never make an attempt to change anything. So even taking the littlest steps, if you do them regularly, they turn into big steps over time. That's really the biggest lesson here.
And we also stay stuck in that stuff because we get stuck in the old thinking that we were talking about earlier, which is,
right,
don't have what I want, I don't have what I want, I don't have what I want. And as long as we're saying that, I hate this job, I hate my life the way it is, I can't stand to be in this relationship I'm in, this is not working out, I don't like it this way, I don't like it this way, I want this to change. And all that keeps us stuck, because we're not saying, the things about our situation. We're not saying we're not imagining the positive place that we would rather be.
The nice thing about trying to reinvigorate a relationship this way is you at least have a history of the good side of the relationship, because early on it was good. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in a relationship. So you can actually go back to that stuff in your mind and say, well, this was good, and that was good, and that was good, and start playing out what that was like, what happened, when those good things were going on, and reimagining them, remembering, particular events and so forth. So that's a really easy way to focus on what you love about somebody when that relationship's kind of on the rocks. Remembering the good stuff and focusing there and saying, that's the part I really like, and that's the part that I really want to attract back into our relationship.
Mm-hmm. And Abraham says you can even just focus on any relationship where, like pick any person in your life and think about qualities that you love about them, qualities you appreciate about them, or definitely take a page in your journal and write the things you appreciate about your own self, right? Because the more we just simply look for things, qualities in others and in ourselves that we appreciate, then we can't help but bring those qualities alive in our life. And so even if our partner, we have a very difficult time coming up with more than 3 things that we can appreciate about our partner. God forbid that it's at that place, but I'm sure that relationships do get like that. But if we just think about other people we appreciate, we will bring alive those qualities. And we might start seeing those qualities in our partner, or certainly see more of those qualities in ourselves. They say that in relationships are only as good as how much we love ourselves. So if we bring alive a deeper and greater appreciation of ourselves every day, we're going to automatically attract into our lives more people who are vibrating with similar qualities that we appreciate.
Yeah, I especially like that last point, because we should also mention that sometimes relationships go bad because one person in the relationship starts abusing the other person. And when that happens, it's really important to stop the cycle of abuse. And one of the ways to do that is to move away from whatever that situation is where the abuse happens. But another way to do it, and equally important, is to focus on what you were talking about, focusing on what you want relationship to be like. What is the ideal relationship? How it feels, how it looks, what it's like to live with it on a day-to-day basis. And the combination of cutting off the abusive part and taking yourself out of the situation to the extent you need to in order to accomplish that, and then simultaneously working on the idealized relationship in your mind and in your heart and your feelings and so forth. That combination is what gets you to where you want to go too fastest, I think.
I agree. I'm glad that you brought up that point of not tolerating abuse. I've had clients that have called me and they want me to help them figure out how to change their abusive partner by them being more positive, you know. And there's a point I say to them, you know, like, look, abuse is abuse, and you got to name it, and you say no to it, you know.
Right.
And so you know, we can't. I mean, it's like that old story we used to hear of women who would stay in an abusive relationship even when the man would be hitting her and hurting her because she believed she was wrong. You know, so she must be her. She must be doing something that's causing him to be like that. And if she would only change, be more of a saint, you know, then he would quit hitting her. And it's really important that people don't buy into that idea. You know, that they really draw really clear boundaries and say, no, you will not touch me, you know.
Right.
And then they seek help.
And if necessary, you remove yourself from the premises and go to a shelter and get some help from somebody outside. Because that doesn't mean that you can't do the other part of the formula. I mean, you can go to a shelter and still focus on, you know, here are what the good things are in a relationship that I want in my relationship. You just don't do it in the house. That's all.
Yeah, and the law of attraction said that the reason that kind of contrast is created in a person's life, the reason a person, you know, creates a situation like that in their life, one reason is to show themselves what they don't want, and by showing themselves really clearly what they don't want, then they know what they do want, you know. And if we've ever been in a relationship that has been hurtful and it hasn't worked out the way we want it, what Abraham did is we immediately put into our vortex the opposite of that. And so we don't have to worry about creating another abusive relationship. We have to know that we're moving beyond creating abuse in our relationships once we recognize it and we move away from it and we say never again. And then, you know, we automatically will be attracting into our lives relationships that do work, that are healthy, that are non-abusive, that are caring, that are loving, where there's kindness, and we can trust that's now the message that we're putting out to the universe is I no longer will be having an abusive relationship. I will be having a healthy relationship.
You know, on the same tack, I told you how I was reading electronically the book The Law of Attraction for the first time, and I got to a section which said something I didn't realize. In fact, I did a show about this the other day with Wendy Dillard. It's the idea that there isn't just one law. There's actually 3 eternal universal laws that Abraham identifies early on in that book. Do you remember that?
Yeah. You mean the law that Austin is given?
Sort of, yeah. Actually, in the book, The Law of Attraction, they lay out 3 laws. The first one being the law of attraction. The second law is the science of deliberate creation, and the third law is the art of allowing. So
okay, those are the 3 main parts of the law of attraction. Yeah.
Well, no, they're actually separate laws according to the book. That's what's so interesting about it. It's not all one law; it's 3 separate laws.
Okay,
and I especially like the third one, which is kind of weird. It's called the art of allowing. You don't really necessarily think of an art as being a law, but they treat it that way. And I was realizing as I was reading it that what they were really saying is, yeah, we're calling it art because there is an art to it, but it's also an absolute. I mean, you really can't do otherwise if you want to attract into your life as a deliberate creator what you want to attract. The art of allowing isn't so much about allowing stuff. It's about allowing yourself and allowing others. So it's allowing yourself to say, I am what I am. And that's just what I am. And it's also allowing others to be what they are. Even the abuser. So if you're in a relationship with an abuser, you have to say to yourself, I can't fix that person. I really can't. I mean, it's just not even within the realm of possibility. I have to allow them to be who they're going to be. And if that means that the relationship ends, well, then that means that the relationship ends. But you have to allow both yourself to be who you really are and to allow them to be what they are, and give up on this whole thing about trying to change each other, because that just destroys everything.
Yeah, I like that. No, I hadn't heard them talk about each of those as a separate law, but those are the 3 steps of conscious creation. That we're constantly asking, whether we're even aware or not. We're always asking for what we want, and then the second part, the second law, as you say, is the universe automatically answers everything we're asking, and it's instantly created in our vortex. You might say in this quantum physics play somehow, the thing is immediately created that we want, and then the third part is the art of allowing, letting it in. And they said that's the biggest part of the process, is letting ourselves receive the thing that we are asking for.
Right.
But I like how you talk about allowing ourselves to be who we are and allowing others to be who they are. Because somehow it's that diversity that makes life what it is. It's what makes it a creative place to be on this planet, is that we let other people be who they are, but we allow in our own goodness. We allow in our own well-being. I once heard Abraham say 100% of your job as a human being is allowing in your well-being.
Yes.
Is to be receptive to the things that you've asked for, to receive all the wonderful ways of living that you would prefer to be living.
And it usually means letting go of something that we're used to doing or being that is counterproductive, but we've never really thought about it as being counterproductive. We're just used to doing it, and in some way we even think perhaps that it's empowering to us when it really isn't. It means learning how to be aware of all of our processes and kind of consciously evaluating each one. Is this one actually serving me? Is this one not serving me? Should I keep it? Should I try to replace it with something else?
Yeah, it's a constant evolutionary process in my mind of and learning how to be open to the fact that I'm a creator, and that I'm creating my possibilities going forward by how much I can imagine the life that I want, and then allowing myself to receive it. Because these things come in perfect timing. They don't. I think the life that I want, the money I want, the partnership I want, these things come in increments based on how much I'm ready to receive. And as Abraham said, that our inner being knows how to give it to us in just the right proportions, in just the right amount, that it comes in a way that's the most fun for us and the most interesting and most rewarding. It might not seem that way all the time. We say, well, why can't I just have my $100,000 right now? Why do I have to wait? I need the money now. But yet it's going to come in a way that's going to be just right for our evolution as a consciousness, as a conscious being. It's going to come in the just perfect increments. And I don't always understand that, but I feel like I spend my days surrendering to the fact that I need to be in a flow here. I need to be in ease about my life. I need to be relaxed and let things come to me in a beautiful unfolding. But I can affect that too by imagining it and getting clearer and clearer on what I want.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that always has intrigued me has been the idea of, and this kind of ties into what you were talking about earlier about praying rain. Most people, when they think of prayer, they think of it as a request, and that's not necessarily the strongest way to look at things, but it can still work. The real important question, though, is why is it that or what is it that people come to expect and come to believe about what's going to happen with prayers? A lot of people will say, well, there's always an answer to your prayer, but sometimes the answer is no. In Abraham Hicks and Law of Attraction circles, it's usually expressed in terms of, well, there's a delay. There's a delay, and it can take some time for the stuff to show up. My take on it is a little bit different. It's kind of in line with that, but my approach is that the answer is always yes. Every time, anything that we focus on, whether it's a deliberate prayer or not, any thought, any emotion that we're attached to, anything that's going on in our present experience that we're paying attention to, is essentially a prayer, and the response that comes back from the universe through the law of attraction is yes. So that raises the question, why don't the $100,000 just show up quick? And I think the answer is pretty straightforward. Once we understand more about who we are, we as beings do not generally stay perfectly in one place. We're constantly bouncing back and forth. Different thoughts are coming to us, different ideas, different feelings. What's the most common with money? I want $100,000. I so much desire $100,000, and in the back of our head, that's never going to happen. So we've just put out two different prayers. One is answered yes, we're going to get the 100,000. The other one is answered no, we're not going to get the 100,000 because that's also a yes. Yes, your prayer that you're not going to get the $100,000 is being honored.
Vibrations.
Right.
It's like Abraham talks about. You put one engine in your train to pull it in the direction you want to go, which is the thought that I'm allowing $100,000 into my life, and on the other end of the train, you've got an engine pulling the opposite way, like you say, saying, I don't think that's going to happen anytime too soon.
Or often 4 or 5 engines at the other end.
I have to pay a big price to get that money.
Yeah, right.
Like I'm going to have to. There's going to have to be some miracles happen, or I'm going to have to get that job before I'm going to ever see that money show up.
We put one engine at the front.
That it can happen in a multitude of ways.
We put the one engine in the front. We put 10 engines in the back, and we expect it to go forward.
Yeah. And that's what you say when you said earlier. Like how do we get into abundance throughout our day? What practices do we use? And that's where I said my main practice is noticing where I'm putting those engines down. Like is the thought I'm having right now taking me more in the direction I want to go, or is it taking me more in the opposite direction?
Early on,
always our thoughts are. We can get. I feel like I can get more attuned to what I'm thinking about and notice. And also what I'm feeling, because if I could be thinking positive thought, but if in my gut I'm feeling fear, I'm feeling terrorized, I'm feeling afraid, I'm feeling sad about something, well, then that's going to be the dominant vibration that I get answered, that whatever my dominant vibration is, that's what the universe is responding to.
Oh, yeah. And early on, we can feel overwhelmed by all that stuff that's coming into our head. Because there's that really heavy pattern of negativity going on, and it can seem overwhelming trying to overcome that. Taking one little step at a time. Like, when is that going to work?
Yeah, and being with the feelings. If the feeling is really strong of feeling defeated, or a feeling is really strong of feeling sad or depressed, how do we listen to some positive thoughts when that feeling is just permeating our whole stomach, the feeling of terror. And that's where I feel like it's really important to sit with those feelings and accept them and say, hey, I'm feeling this fear, I'm feeling this doubt, this worry, I'm acknowledging that, and now how can I feel a little bit better? What could I do to feel a little bit better? Is there anything I could tell myself? Is there anything I could do that would get me feeling a little bit better? I remember once I used to get depressed years ago, and I remember hearing this thing, depression is like an easy chair. And when you're sitting in that easy chair, the hardest thing is to get yourself to put your feet on the ground and to push yourself up out of that chair and to move and to go do something else. And any feeling that seems intractable and seems like it's overwhelming me, it's like getting out of that easy chair. I've got to do something, whether it's go listen to some Abraham, or go for a walk, or like I say, go to the kitchen and get something to eat. Do something that gets me out of that place of feeling so stuck. And then, by stringing together little bit by little bit better feeling things, I can begin to develop a new momentum, and that's putting engines down on the end of the train in the direction I want to go. What are all the little things I can do throughout my day that move me more in the direction I'd prefer to be going?
Yeah, and
rather
preferably
than in the opposite direction.
And preferably focusing on trying things that are actually healthy for you to do. I mean, you mentioned somebody being in depression, having trouble getting out of the chair, and then going into the kitchen and getting something to eat. If they're overweight, that's probably not the best thing to do. But the point is to do something that actually is healthy for you, that's good for you, and take those steps one at a time.
If you go eat a whole bag of potato chips, that might not be healthy.
That's probably not the best thing, no.
That can be a part of the same habit pattern that then will just make it go worse and worse and worse. So sometimes the healthy thing to do is to not go to the kitchen and not eat potato chips.
That's a good time to take a walk.
Might go for something healthy for yourself,
or that, yeah.
Call a friend that you know is a positive, helping friend, and you can call and talk to them. Call your coach,
Right. What we're really talking about here is learning how to find the good stuff inside. Because anytime we try to reach outside and food, please make me feel better and eat a bag of potato chips, it's not going to work. Well, it's going to make us heavier, but it's not going to actually accomplish what we want to accomplish. So if we want to accomplish it, we have to look inside about what actually makes us feel good and focus on that. And if it's an activity that actually does feel good for more than just the split second of eating the bag of potato chips gives you, but actually gives you an ongoing feeling, then you're on the right track. You're finding the right kind of stuff. And that can be a kind of tough distinction at first.
One thing that's on the leading edge of my creative growth these days is to realize just how versatile my mind actually is for coming up with new possibilities. That if I feel like I'm stuck in a situation and I'm starting to get bummed out by it, I ask myself, wait a minute, there's got to be other ways to think about this situation. There's got to be all kinds of other ways to think about this situation. And I realize then I can. It's sort of like if you're focused on things that you appreciate about yourself, or you're focused on things that you're upset about with yourself. Well, can I change my focus a little bit more to the things I appreciate? How can I take my attention a little bit more off? Like I have sinus symptoms sometimes that show up as sinus headaches or earaches and things. If I start getting those feelings in my head, how can I take my attention off those feelings and put them more onto something else? Like what can I go read, or what can I think about that lends to the fact that I'm choosing health rather than the headache? And sometimes I just go take an Advil, but
I think we all do at some point.
Yeah, but every little thing we do that expands our ability to feel like we're resourceful and that it's in our court to make these changes. It's in our ability to think a better feeling thought. That's something that can be played with endlessly. I find that I can do that about anything in my life. What's a better feeling thought?
Yeah.
Other than the one that seems to be intractable and bumming me out,
Absolutely, I agree. I was just realizing, you said that about taking an Advil, and I made a joke about it. But then I started to think, and I said, I haven't taken a pain reliever in over a year. That's almost a record these days. In fact, I'm having trouble remembering the last time I took a pain reliever. It was a long time ago. I kind of take that as a measurement of
you don't have pain anymore, or because you find other ways to deal with it?
I think it's a combination, really. Less often having the pain and having better ways to deal with it. More the first than the second. But I think a lot of it has to do with, this personal development journey we're on, where we're constantly trying to reach for the better thoughts, find the silver linings, and so forth. You do that long enough, I think you actually reach a point where you just don't set yourself up for that headache anymore.
Exactly, and you said also like just feeling joy and recognizing that it's our default state. You know that, and like if you go out and you listen to your songs on your iPhone,
right.
As you're doing that walk, and you have this soundtrack of these better feeling songs, these good, really good feeling songs that just lifts you up and lifts you up and lifts you up, and eventually, you do enough of those things throughout your day, and it's not likely that you're going to get sick, right? It's not as likely that you're going to run into a situation of pain in your life because you're filling your life with so much more joy.
I think the other thing that happens, too, is when you do run into a situation, like I ran into one yesterday, actually just before we did the afternoon podcast, before Wendy and I went on the air, I had a situation come up, and my stomach was in knots all of a sudden. I mean, it was so uncomfortable. But what was different is I was so used to working on this stuff that I noticed instantly not only that my stomach was in knots, but now I knew why. It's because I was disagreeing with the situation. I didn't like that situation. And it was a signal to me, oh, this is a time to try shifting my attention. And I was able to shift it a whole lot more quickly as a result. So I think that's part of it. You learn over time new ways of dealing with the unpleasant situations, and so they don't last very long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you don't know yourself the same old story. Like I have had a story about technology because I'm a bit older and I didn't really learn. I didn't grow up, working a computer like so many young people do today, and I didn't even need one in my job for most of the time I had my career before I became a life coach, and I found that attitude that I had about technology was really crippling me.
Sure.
Because I didn't give the belief that technology was difficult. But once I decided to just try on the idea that technology could be fluid, that I could move through it, that I could work with it, then I started to have all kinds of success with it. And now I just have this attitude that I can learn anything with technology, and that technology is designed to work. Yeah, sure, there's going to be times where it doesn't, but instead of having that attitude that it's going to be a problem, now I have a whole lot less problems with it.
Oh, yeah. It reminds me of the story of the guy who was teaching technicians how to be technicians in school. And somebody asked him a question one time, why are there always so many bugs in the software? And his response was, the miracle isn't that the software keeps breaking down. The miracle is that it works at all. It's an important thing to remember.
Yeah. I try to have that attitude towards all of life, like that life is designed to work. And I tell that to my clients, and I actually speak about that topic I really want to talk about, which is, I believe that the greater majority of everything on Earth is working in this very moment, and it's working really, really well. Most people's lives right now are working. Most people's trees are growing the way they need to grow. Most plants are growing the way they need to grow. Most weather is working the way it needs to work. And people could argue that it's not, but I don't believe that. I believe that the general way that the universe works, that whole idea, are the planets right now spinning in perfect proximity to each other, or are they colliding with each other?
Yeah, that's true.
And by and large, everything's working.
Well, listen, we're down to our last minute, so we got to put in a couple commercial messages. First of all, if you're listening and you're enjoying this, we urge you to subscribe. If you have not yet subscribed to the podcast, you can do that at loatoday.net. You can also subscribe through Apple iTunes or through the podcast software on your iPhone. And if you're on an Android, you can also subscribe by going to Google Play. You can find us there as well. And Tom, if people want to contact you to get some help with some coaching assistance, how do they reach you?
They can go to my website, which is youarejoy.com. That's youarejoy.com. And there's a page on there you can sign up for a free discovery session, a free session with me for 1 hour, where I will, work with you on anything you'd like to work with, and you can see whether or not you might like to do coaching with me without any pressure.
Sounds great. Hey, Tom, it's been a pleasure as usual.
Okay, Walt, I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Yep, we'll see you on Monday, and we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.